How's it going? Russell here with Nerd Rods, doing our update. Today is August 9th, 2015. Want to do a quick update, talk about some of the stuff going on in the shop. Specifically, want to talk about the prototype projects for our 55 to 59 truck frames going on. We're real fortunate right now to have the Webb's truck here in the shop. This will be the first one we've done with the low body style, so you'll notice the height is much further down on this guy. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what's involved with doing the low body stance, because a lot of guys like the look, but a lot of people don't understand what's involved to get this kind of shape done. So let's open it up and talk about it a little bit. All right, so coming up here to the motor on this thing, we've got one of the 5.3 liter Chevrolet truck motors. Real common, excellent motor to use on these. A lot of guys are really loving them. We actually have 4 of them in the shop right now. And bang for the buck, you can't beat it. So we are going to work around a lot of what's required with this motor, but we're also going to talk about some of the other advantages of, say, an LS3 Connect and Cruise, and any of the other motors that you might run into, and what the advantages and disadvantages are and what modifications are required. So the big thing about the 5.3 truck motors is the fact that it has a very deep oil pan. That is the big kicker on this guy. Combination of the deep oil pan and the long pulley out the front for the pump makes it far more difficult to clearance on stuff. So to avoid having to spend a bunch of money on a new oil pan, we do move the motor higher so you obtain the same amount of clearance on the bottom underneath the car. You don't have to go buying a new oil pan for it. It'll work. You're going to raise the center of gravity. It's going to affect handling, but if you're not super into handling stuff, no big deal. What this does do, though, is it does force the motor into the firewall. So we can come in here and you can see how tight we are to the firewall, and it's close. I mean, we are snug even here with our custom firewall. It just barely clears. We got about a ½ inch, so we've got room for the motor to shake and vibrate and not go banging into the firewall. So you will have to modify your firewall if you run a 5.3 truck in the tall configuration. If you're running an LS3 Connect and Cruise, an LS1 with a Camaro pan or a Corvette pan, you can lower the motor to help center gravity out. So for your autocross guys and your handling guys, something you want to keep in mind and plan for. Lowering the center of gravity is probably the best thing you can do to make these things handle better. At that point, though, you do have more ground clearance. So we'll move around here and we'll get some light shifted around, and we'll show you the pulley and how that clears on the front. All right, guys, so as you can see in here, move some lights around so you guys can see between the pulleys and the radiator. But the next clearance problem you have after the firewall is making sure you got enough room between the front pulley and the radiator. So you can get in there, you can work on it, you got room for things to move around. And it gets snug pretty quick here with the truck pulleys sticking out way out the front. This also means that if you're running a CTSV or a ZL1 Camaro LSA with a supercharger, you do have room for the pulleys because the edge of those matches up with the front edge of the truck stuff. So you will have room for that. You can make you'll be able to run those guys no problem. For those guys want to make a little more power, have a little more fun. But you do need to make sure you clear. And so this is why we do have to go so far back with the motor, because we got to make sure we have that room on the front to get in there. So next thing to consider, make sure when you're setting your motors up and you're clearancing everything, make sure you've got plenty of room from the leading edge back. I normally go from the front of the frame 6 inches. Gives you plenty of room to the back of the fan. You go about 6.5, 7 from the front leading edge of our frame, not from a stock frame. And that'll make sure you've got plenty of room. You can get your hand in there and actually work on it. That's where this guy is. It's the front edge of the pulley. It's 7 inches back. So let's move back around to the side here. Let's talk about wheels and tires. All right, so one of everybody's favorite questions is how big a wheel and tire can you get on here? Well, guys, this is pretty much as good as it's going to get. I'm going to try fitting some bigger stuff a little bit later, but this front tire is a 275 on a 10.5. I've got some 295s on 11s I'm going to try, but this guy fits up here with just a little bit of a spacer. This is a a 10.5 wide Corvette wheel with 56 millimeters of offset and a 275 Hosier racing tire. So this normally has a bigger blocked edge on it and takes up even more room than a regular tire. On the back, this is a 19 with a 345. It does not fit, not yet at least. This guy's got an inch and a quarter spacer on it, and I believe, I'll have to check some measurements on it with this fender, but I believe with this stock metal fender, if we drop the sizing down from inch and a quarter to half an inch, we should be able to clear. If we come into the back here, you can see we've got a 2-inch mini tub in the back side, and we have room to the front of the fender to clear the tire. If we zoom in back down here, you can see this is the clearance area that you've got to run into, making the tire clear the dog bone. And we've got quite a bit of room in there. Unfortunately, I can't get a good angle with the camera to show you, but I'll post up some still pictures later as well so you guys can see what we're talking about. We've got room. So we can probably make it work with the right spacer. Here we go. More than likely you will need to add a little bit width, but this does mean a 275 is going to fit no problem on one of these guys. With a 10.5 inch wheel, 275, 295 for you guys wanting to make some more power and hook them up, you will have room and you will have clearance. It turns out the original fenders we scanned that we used in SolidWorks for designing our frame were a little more jacked up than we would have liked. So that ended up giving us some false data and making us think we were going to have quite a bit of room interference on the trucks. So no big deal there. We have room for tires. Next, let's kind of talk about some ergonomic stuff on one of these trucks when you're making your choices. What you do have to do when you do our frame, there is no provision for firewall or for frame mounted master cylinders. So you do have to run an aftermarket firewall mounted. This is the CPP system. And so far we've done half a dozen of them. They fit pretty well. The pedal distance is pretty excellent on them. We haven't had any real trouble with it, but if you are running the stock bench seat, it is going to be a bit of a troublesome. I'll give you a show real quick. So we have a stock bench seat bolted into the stock location. Hello, cat. Thank you. You're helping. I am 6'2" with a 36-inch seam. And I'll even take off my funny hat. But you can see there's almost no room in here to the steering wheel, and this is a 15-inch steering wheel. The brake pedal, if I can get my other leg out of the way, you have to pretty much get your foot up here to make it work. So it is not going to be comfortable for long distance driving. Bucket seats, bucket seats, bucket seats, bucket seats, or have somebody modify the bench. With the gas tank out of here, using our rear mounted gas tank, we now have plenty of room in the back. And we have plenty of room behind the seat now. So you can take a look back here. Also, just by going to a narrower seat, you'll very easily be able to get more room back there as well. In Jim's particular personal truck, we went to a Corvo racing seat that we cut down to make it more civilized, I guess would be the best way to put it. And because of the 1.5 inch thick back on it, we were actually able to pick up almost 12 inches of leg room in the car. And with his manual transmission, that's something to really, really cheer about. So that's what we got going on this guy. Other stuff in the shop right now, we've got George's Stage 1 truck. This is the tall guy. I'll try to get some pictures posted up sometime soon with a side-by-side comparison of the tall guy versus the short one. So you can see that how that 4 inches makes a huge amount of difference. And then we'll move into a couple other projects. So we got Jim's project here in the shop. So this is a Project D3, Dad's Down and Dirty. It continues to get nicer, as one of the problems with our shop continuously has. So we'll see how that guy goes together. We're still aiming to get it running and driving and street legal by the end of the summer. And we've got another truck frame over here for a gentleman. This one will be getting its motor put into it, and then he'll be shipping out pretty quick here once we get him powder coated. You can see here the 7-inch clearance that we use with the tape. 7 inches from the front of the frame, front pulley clears, we're ready to rock and roll. I'm just getting ready to cut some room off of the Nerd Rod's motor mount stanchions so I can make sure we get a little more clearance from the oil pan to the motor, so we can get it down a little bit more, help drop the center of gravity. So that's all we got going on here now. Once again, guys, this is Russell with Nerd Rods, and hopefully we'll have some pop up next week. So if you guys want to click subscribe, hit the buttons, pay attention, and hit us up on all the social media stuff, and we'll be here to show more stuff. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments, Facebook page. Feel free to email us, and hopefully we'll be moving out a prototype stage on this frame pretty quickly and offering up all the different options and stuff. Appreciate it. You guys have a good one.